The NBA introduced the Most Valuable Player award in the 1955-56 season in order to honor one individual as the best performing player in the regular season. Bob Pettit was the first to receive the official trophy, and ever since then, the NBA has awarded an MVP after each season. But 1956 was not the NBA's inaugural season. The NBA originally started as the Basketball Association of America, or the BAA, in the 46-47 season, and after merging with another league, the NBL, for the 49-50 season, the NBA was officially created. So that means we are missing 9 MVP winners from 1947 to 55. As a bit of fun, I decided to go back retroactively and choose who I believe should have won the MVP during these years. Starting in 1947, the first hypothetical MVP is actually a tough call between the Philadelphia Warriors' Joe Fulks and the Washington Capitals' Bob Feerick, but in my mind, Fulks wins the award, just barely. Joe Fulks is often referred to as the first superstar in NBA history. While he didn't invent the jump shot, he's often credited as one of its biggest innovators. As a 6'5" power forward, he may very well be the first stretch 4 in league history. He comfortably led all players in scoring this year with 23.2 points on 30.5% from the field. He was the Warriors' main offensive engine, and it shows, as their next highest scorer averaged 9.4 points per game, and Fulks led the team in win shares by a wide margin. As good as Fulks was, Feerick also went on a complete tear this season. Both stars were first-team All-BAA, and Feerick finished second in scoring with 16.8 points, which is even more impressive when you consider that he was a 6'3" guard. He was first in field goal percentage, first in true shooting percentage, 4th in free throw percentage, and 10th in assists. He led the league in both win shares and offensive win shares, and his Capitals finished with the best record in the league. Feerick definitely has a strong case, but he was also playing alongside 2 All-BAA players, first-teamer Bones McKinney and second-teamer Fred Scolari, whereas Fulks had no All-League teammates. The 1948 MVP is again a hard choice between Joe Fulks and Bob Feerick. Both stars were named first-team All-BAA again, but in my opinion, Feerick takes it this time, just slightly. Feerick once again led the league in win shares, he led the league in free throw percentage, and finished second in field goal percentage. Fulks again averaged a league-best 22.1 points, although he did not win the scoring title, because at this time, the scoring title was won by the player with the most total points, and Fulks missed 5 games. Fulks again was the main scoring machine on the Warriors, but he did not lead the team in any win shares category. When all said and done, I'm more comfortable giving the MVP to Feerick because of his better all-around style. In 1949, a legend claims his first MVP, the incredible George Mikan. After jumping from the NBL to the BAA, Mikan had a dominant rookie season in this new league, with 28.3 points and 3.6 assists on 42.3% from the field. He was first in points, win shares, offensive win shares, second in field goal percentage, and 5th in defensive win shares. If rebounds were tracked at this time, he may have led the league in those as well. Recently, the NBA announced that they were renaming the Most Improved Player award to be the George Mikan Most Improved Player award. I find that decision a little odd. Don't get me wrong, I love that they're honoring Mikan, but the instant Mikan came into the league, he was already the best player, so there wasn't much room for improvement. That being said, Mikan did not run away with the MVP completely, as Joe Fulks had the last MVP-worthy season of his career. He shot 31.5% from the field, but he averaged a career-high 26 points per game. On February 10th, 1949, in a game against the Indianapolis Jets, Fulks scored 63 points, an NBA record that stood for a decade, until Elgin Baylor scored 64 points in 1959. Arnie Risen on the Rochester Royals also deserves a mention, but whichever way you look at it, Mikan was just on another level. The 1949-50 season was the league's first official year as the NBA, but the song remains the same in regards to the MVP, as George Mikan wins it for a second time, just a bit ahead of Dolph Schayes. Even though he was only a rookie, Schayes put up an impressive campaign of his own with 16.8 points and 4 assists, finishing comfortably ahead of all other forwards and centers in assists. Both the Syracuse Nationals and Minneapolis Lakers finished with 51 wins, but on an individual level, Mikan beats out Schayes in terms of production. Mr. Basketball once again led the league in points per game with 27.4, he led the league in win shares, offensive win shares, defensive win shares, and he shot better than Schayes from the field and the free throw line. The 1951 MVP goes to George Mikan. Although the Lakers did not win the championship this year, individually, Mikan was never better in the NBA than he was in 1951. He put up 28.4 points, 14.1 rebounds, and 3.1 assists on a career-best 42.8% from the field and a career-best 80.3% from the free throw line. If the Defensive Player of the Year award had existed at this time, he may have won that, since he finished with the most defensive win shares in the league, the Lakers had the #1 rated defense, and Mikan's dominant presence in the paint famously led to the NBA widening the lane to prevent big men from simply camping underneath the basket. Honorable mention this year goes to Dolph Schayes, who led the league in rebounds with 17 points, 16.4 rebounds, and 3.8 assists. The 1952 MVP just barely goes to Paul Arizin. This was the hardest MVP to decide in this video, as it was a tough three-man battle between Paul Arizin, George Mikan, and Bob Cousy. Let's start with Cousy. The Houdini of the hardwood put up 21.7 points, 6.7 assists, and 6.4 rebounds. When talking about Cousy, many people will only mention his dribbling skills and passing ability, but in his prime, he was also a very capable scorer, as his 21.7 points was the highest average of his career. George Mikan had another great season with 23.8 points, a league-best 13.5 rebounds, and 3 assists, as he once again led the Lakers to another NBA championship. My vote for the MVP, however, goes to pitchin' Paul Arizin on the Philadelphia Warriors. As a second-year player, Arizin put up a league-best 25.4 points, 11.3 rebounds, and 2.6 assists on a league-best 44.8% from the field. To be that efficient as a jump-shooting forward in the 50s sounds practically insane. Not to mention, Arizin stood at only 6'4" and still managed to get nearly 12 rebounds a game. His Warriors only finished with a 33-33 record, but Arizin still led the league in win shares and offensive win shares, proving just how valuable he was to his team. Something that also sways me in Arizin's favor was that on the Lakers, Jim Pollard, Vern Mickelson, and Slater Martin had all blossomed into star players, whereas Arizin didn't have that type of help. The 1953 MVP goes to George Mikan, who wins it ahead of Bob Cousy. Not much to elaborate on here, as this was another typical impressive Mikan season, with 20.6 points, 14.4 rebounds, and 2.9 assists. He led the league in rebounds, PER, defensive win shares, and he was second in points and win shares. The Lakers finished with a league-best 48-22 record, but the Celtics had their first really successful season with a 46-25 record. A big part of that was Bob Cousy orchestrating an early version of the Celtics' patented fast break offense. He won his first of 8 consecutive assist titles with 19.8 points, 7.7 assists, and 6.3 rebounds. In the Celtics and Lakers' 6 regular season matchups, the Lakers won 5 games, while the Celtics only snatched a single win. Something I haven't mentioned thus far is that there sort of was an MVP award given to NBA players at this time, the Sam Davis Memorial Award. It was an award given by the Metropolitan Basketball Writers Association from 1950 up until the 70s. When the NBA adopted its own MVP, the Sam Davis Award was still given out to players. Sometimes the two awards coincided with the same player, and sometimes they went to different players. A few of my choices won the Sam Davis Award the same year, but I've tried to not let it completely affect my judgment. That being said, Bob Cousy won the 1953 Sam Davis Award. Is it somewhat arrogant to go against people who actually watched Cousy play live? Yeah, I think it kind of is. But looking at what the two players accomplished this season, I have to go with Mikan. The 1954 MVP goes to Dolph Schayes, who wins the award ahead of Bob Cousy, Neil Johnston, and Harry Gallatin. Schayes put up 17.1 points, 12.1 rebounds, and 3 assists. In most basic and advanced stat categories, there are certainly players who finished higher up in the rankings than Schayes did, but what stands out to me is how Schayes led his team to one of the better regular season records, but had the hardest schedule in the league that year, finishing with an SRS of 4.27, the highest in the NBA. They also had the highest winning point differential with 4.9. The player who most challenged Schayes this year was Neil Johnston, who averaged 24.4 points, 11.1 rebounds, and 2.8 assists. At this time, Paul Arizin was off serving in the military, so Johnston had a big load to carry on the Philadelphia Warriors, and this is shown in the fact that he led all players this season in minutes played. Johnston led the league in scoring, win shares, offensive win shares, he was second in PER, and third in field goal percentage, but the Warriors finished with a 29-43 record. favored, so Schayes keeps the MVP in my mind. The 1955 MVP, on the other hand, goes to Neil Johnston. Johnston is often forgotten about when discussing legends of the 1950s. He was a 6'8" center who earned 4 straight first-team All-NBA selections, and he's one of only 3 players to have led the league in points per game, rebounds per game, and field goal percentage. This season, he averaged 22.7 points, 15.1 rebounds, and 3 assists. He led the league in scoring, rebounds, PER, win shares, offensive win shares, and he was 4th in field goal percentage. The Warriors did miss the playoffs again with a 33-39 record, but considering how much Johnston stood out statistically compared to the other candidates, I just can't decide who else I would give the award to. If I had to choose someone who seriously challenged Johnston, then I would say it was Kuzi, who averaged 21.2 points and 7.8 assists, but he was less efficient than Johnston, and also less impactful on the defensive end. So, what do you think? Did some players get snubbed? Were there some undeserving wins? Let me know in the comments, and I hope you have a good day. Take care.